Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. Get off of there. There we go. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Little last minute adjustments here. It happens every single time. You look up at the clock and you're like, oh, I'm good. I got an hour before we got to go on. And then you always end up last minute doing all the stuff that you forgot to do. I hope everybody's having an outstanding weekend. Freezing your tail off, of course, because it's kind of chilly up here. It's been raining and nasty. Let's see. Okay, so this isn't going to be a ticker. That's okay. We can run with that. And I can put that there too. Okay. So we'll leave that in. Yeah. Let me jump into chats real quick and see who all's hanging out. We got Jen. This is the first live stream that she's made it into. That's awesome. Good to see you. And Daniel is going to be here from USARK Florida. Really looking forward to talking with him. As you guys know, excuse me, all of this stuff that's going on with the laws and regulations and things that change and things that need our attention. I definitely want to get everything as straight from the horse's mouth as I can. I want to make sure I'm getting you guys the right information. So Daniel is definitely a wealth of information on what they've got going on down there. And we are looking forward to talking with him. It's been a while. It'll be a little bit before he gets in, but when he does, we'll go ahead and dive into some of that stuff as well. Sam, good to see you. Lorraine, Judd. Hey, yes, it has been a big week for live streams, man. I could not believe Wickens last night, man. That guy just straight threw down and raised, God, I want to say before you take out cuts and everything like that, over 10 grand for what he's wanted to do at the Legacy Aquarium down there for Brian. So, I mean, huge shout out to Wickens, man. It was so cool to see all the support and everybody jumping in, man. It's just 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 all night long. And they got quite a bit put together. There is some kind of a plaque or something like that, some kind of a display, an animal display, I think it is, that he's going to do. We're definitely looking forward to seeing how that goes. But yeah, that's I'm guessing would be the live stream that they're referring to. Carla, how are you? Good to see you. Jane, me Mother is here. Laura, Greg. Hope you're doing well out there. Jennifer from Sydney. Good to see you. Annie and Travis. Man, we've got a lot of folks in here already, man. This is pretty cool. Pretty cool. And I am really happy too. I don't know if you guys can tell or not. I been in bed all day for the most part. Every now and then, man, I wear contact lenses, and every now and then my eyeball decides to hate me. So it was really, really light sensitive earlier today. I didn't think I was going to be able to do this. And I was like, well, I better stay in bed all day or else I'm not going to be able to stare at the computer monitor, but it's good. And I think maybe the funky lighting and everything in the background kind of helps distract you from the freaking red eye here. But we made it. I should be good to go to make it for the night. Douglas, good to see you. Avery. Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, that was I was kind of on the fence. Avery was talking about the video that I did for Brian. Like I said in the video, I was kind of on the fence about it because I'm not one to talk about something just because everybody's talking about it. I only talk about it unless I've actually got something to say, and I didn't want anybody to think I was bandwagon jumping or nothing like that. So, but yeah, I think it was pretty important. I haven't had the opportunity to meet Brian yet. It's unfortunate. I just haven't traveled a great deal. I've been really tied down to what we've been doing here. But I've got a lot of respect for the man. I've got probably the most respect for him for being so transparent and just opening up, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. He talks about it. He owns it. He moves forward. He tries to do the best he can, and he's done an awesome job out there. Um, so I just felt it necessary. Hopefully he sees it. Um, if anybody knows him personally that can say, hey man, Tim's got something to say to you that he'd like you to hear. That was the whole point of it. That's why I turned monetization off on that video. So there's already, I mean, you look at it, it's spread out pretty well. But yeah, I turned monetization off on that. And I don't want anybody to say I've got any other alternative or motive rather than just getting the message out to Brian. Chris, how are you, sir? Good to see you. Let me see. Snakes in the Garage is here. Heather is here. Desiree, good to see you. Northern Idaho, if I'm not mistaken, you guys are probably getting inundated with snow out there too, right? I think Northern Idaho gets a good, well, and we go straight from there to someplace I know is snowing. Alaska. Good to see you. Awesome. Panther. Okay, now I'm going to shoot right through these because Daniel is with us and I don't want to leave him sitting backstage too long. Give him a second to get all his stuff. Wait for the big old thumbs up when he's ready to come in. Anthony and Laura. Let's see. Last count was 11,000 Canadian. That's amazing, man. I mean, that's just a testament to the reptile community, man. Where you can just jump online with a purpose, and there's so many people there to support it, and it's awesome. It's awesome. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Did he pass? I know Carla is a friend of Brian's. So if anybody would know, she would know. Jump down in the comments if you would, Carla, and let us know if that's actually the case. Let's see. And Daniel is in for a second. I guess he's got some things he needs to tweak there. Let's see. Fago, good to see you. Jim Hill is here. Good to see you. Oh, no kidding. So he did pass, huh? That's terrible. Yeah, see, I know he was going into hospice, but I also know that Carla's a friend of his, so he may have. There's delays when videos come out. Maybe at the time that he was filming that he was going into hospice. We really don't know. I mean, outside of, if Carla says that he'd passed 2 days ago, then that's okay. Anyway, we can do a like a memorial time for Brian and stuff like that. I definitely, I mean, it's a sad thing, and I definitely hate that he's had to go through that. However, that being said, and I know Brian would not want us spending our entire evening sitting here talking about him when we've got issues that we need to do for the community. So let's focus on that stuff tonight. We're going to do exactly what he would want to do and have make this as positive as humanly possible. And trying to find the cricket. Yeah, the crickets are probably here. I've got some crickets here. Hello, Michelle from Montana. Dennis. Okay. So, Daniel, give me a thumbs up if you're ready there, buddy. Cool. Hey. What's going on, stranger?
Hello. Long time no see. Good to be here.
I know, man. It's good to finally talk to you. We've been bouncing around and wanting to do this, wanting to do that, and before you know it, 3 months goes by.
It's
the story of our lives.
Yeah, I mean the whole last year just flew by. I can't believe everything that's happened over the course of the year. It's been an amazing year down here in Florida for reptile keepers and USARK Florida in general. A lot of things happen.
Well, isn't if I'm not mistaken, I mean, things had been going fairly well down there for the most part, right?
Well, we got, as a result of all that happened with the Holy Thursday massacre, we ended up with a new director of FWC.
Right.
And that might have not completely been just because of that event, but it was just because, there were a lot of things happening that weren't good, and the acting director applied for the job and didn't get it. He was the assistant director, and other people in the agency that would have been a lot worse for us applied for it and didn't get the job. So we're happy with Roger Young getting the job. Now, that being said, there's still kind of forces hostile to us within the agency. It's become apparent. So, we still have a lot to work on, but we think we have a good relationship going forward with leadership, and we're going to go from there. Unfortunately, most of you have probably seen what's popped up in the last couple weeks is that a bill has been pre-filed in the legislature, which would ban all iguanas. And so green iguanas are already basically banned in Florida, but this would ban all other species of iguanas. So we're considering that anything in the family Iguanidae. So that could range from, all of your rock iguanas, rhino iguanas, cycluras, spiny tails, and even chuckwallas. Those are all iguanid lizards. Yeah. So it's very concerning to us, and this has been attached to a bill that bans dog and cat sales at pet stores in Florida.
Saw that.
So that language has been kind of spreading around the country. And it's been passed on a local level in many municipalities. It's been passed on a state level in a few different states, I believe. And that's kind of spreading like wildfire. And unfortunately, our, iguana thing got attached to that.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So,
did they give you any rationale? Have you heard any rationale for like the cat and dog ban in the pet stores? Are they just trying to push animals out of shelters or something? Or
well, that's something that animal rights activists have been pushing. Specifically Humane Society of the United States, which we know that they're also an organization that's hostile to reptile keepers. They don't want people keeping reptiles in captivity. So, unfortunately, it seems like the more radical elements of the animal rights activists don't seem to want people to interact with animals at all. They think that animals should be totally independent from people. They basically want a segregation of people and animals. and they
Right.
don't want people to have animals in their lives, and they think that animals have the right to not ever have to see a person
Right.
or be petted or cuddled by a person or anything like that. So unfortunately, we're dealing with those forces. And then there are genuinely good people that have a heart for animals, and unfortunately, a lot of them support these animal rights organizations, not really knowing what they support. But if you like keeping your animals and you have pets, you should really reconsider whether you want to support these animal rights organizations.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you really want to draw that line between human and animals, stop building in their natural habitats. Leave them the hell alone. Give them space to thrive. Since we can't do
Yeah,
that, we've got no other option other than to, the captive breeding programs and bringing them into our homes because we're putting our homes right on our houses.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing that is most sad. Of course, I'm a conservationist. I know most reptile keepers that I know are. I mean, we want to see reptiles conserved in the wild, and we want to see their habitats conserved. But unfortunately, it's not something that we as the human species seem that committed to. We bulldoze their habitats, and they don't have much place to live. So if animals can't live in the wild and they can't live in captivity, there just aren't going to be animals left. A lot of animals. So I would rather have a world with animals in it, including our reptiles.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had 21 species added to the extinct list in 2023. Just
Yeah, and we're on a crash course for more of that happening if things continue the way it has been,
right.
and especially if, I mean, the Endangered Species Act has gotten a lot of press, recently, but the Endangered Species Act has worked for some animals. I mean, we know that we have bald eagles, and we have alligators, and we have a lot of success stories because the Endangered Species Act, but it hasn't worked for a lot of herp species like the eastern indigo snake that we got right back there. So what it's done is it's stopped people from breeding them in captivity, and it has done virtually nothing to protect their habitat in the wild.
Right.
So generally, Endangered Species Act is something that most conservationists would be for, but when it stops a species from being bred in captivity and it doesn't help them in the wild, then it's really hurting things more than it's helping.
Right. Yeah, it's sad that, I mean, I can kind of understand what their mindset is with just wanting to prevent people from having those animals because they don't want them going out capturing them in the wild because they're rare and they're expensive and all that. And you can't really tell who's actually breeding and who's not and stuff like that. I get that. But I mean, just like the crested geckos, I mean, those were practically extinct at one point, and captive breeding is what pulled them back from the brink of being gone forever.
Yeah, they were thought to be extinct.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then there's no chance of crested geckos ever going extinct unless they're banning them in every single country in the world where people keep reptiles, because it's one of the most popular reptile species in the world now.
Right.
So crested geckos will be here with us due to the efforts of captive breeders.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's one of the reasons why what herpetoculturists do is so important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There was, I was even listening to something the other day about the wolf reintroduction, and I can't remember what state it was in, but, and I want to say it was red wolves, but I mean, they even had a lot of the local population fighting against their reintroduction. It was only like 30 of them or something in remote areas, but
yeah, red wolves are that's a species that occurred all over the eastern United States, especially the southeastern United States. We had them in Florida, and now there's basically only one wild population in far eastern North Carolina.
really,
And yeah, and they've actually been breeding them at St. Vincent National Wildlife Refuge in Florida, which is an island, but they had been reintroducing them in coastal North Carolina. but they did have issues with the locals protesting against that. You know, it's tough for predators out there because people are real nervous about wolves, you know, and red wolves are a lot different than like the Western gray wolves that tend to will eat livestock and stuff. But a red wolf is kind of like in between a coyote and the larger timber wolf or gray wolf.
Right.
And but that's a predator that we don't have in Florida. I've talked some about that. We used to have red wolves, and they're not here. And the Burmese python has actually kind of filled that niche, predator niche, and helped to reduce the populations of those what we call mesopredators, which are medium-sized predators that are what eat a lot of our reptiles and amphibians. So we know that the populations of turtles and even crocodiles, endangered American crocodiles, have increased because of having another predator filling that niche, something that's going to put a hurting on the raccoons a little bit, which are eating most of the crocodile and turtle eggs. So even with things like pythons, it's not all bad. I mean, we do need predators out there.
Yeah, they we was talking about that when Jeremy was on the other day. I would be curious to see a really well done third party study on Florida that's not funded by Florida, done by the University of Florida. You know.
Well, you know, it's unfortunate. I mean, there are a lot of great science happens out there, and I don't want to condemn science or scientists, but unfortunately the way it works is that scientists are able to study what they can get grant money, what they can get funding to study. And there's tons of money available right now to study invasive species. And the more scary you make invasive species seem, or any non-native species, and the more scary they are, the more money seems to come, because when you freak people out, government agencies and politicians and stuff are more willing to donate, or not donate, give money, the taxpayers' money to that cause. So a lot of scientists are getting into that just because they know there's funding available, and it doesn't do them much good to underplay the impact that these species are having. So a lot of it gets exaggerated, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of the connection that you see in a lot of stuff. You know, when somebody's not gonna, a land developer is not gonna fund a study that says Burmese pythons aren't a problem. Encroachment is the problem.
Exactly. And we know, you know, habitat loss is the #1 issue facing our wildlife here in Florida. But developers run this state. I mean, most of the FWC commissioners, which are appointed by the governor, that make our wildlife rules, they're developers. A good percentage of of our elected leaders are developers, or they're lobbyists for developers, or they're lawyers for developers. So, I mean, that's just, it happens everywhere, but especially in a place like Florida, where we're constantly growing and a lot of people are moving here. And yeah, it's unfortunately, it's definitely the biggest threat to our wildlife is just losing all their habitat, because we're building houses and malls and highways over where they live.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's so you guys have got let's see. And when I first touched on this too, I had made the mistake of pretty much laying it all on FWC, and then Jeremy corrected me, said that it was actually the legislature that had put that out. So that's a pretty important distinction too. For the folks.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, FWC. So the state representative, Killebrew, who is sponsoring this legislation with the iguana ban in Florida, he's a member of the Natural Resources Committee in the State House. Well, just a couple months ago, Melissa Tucker from FWC was testifying to them, demonizing iguanas. So whether FWC directly asked for this or not, and they were basically lobbying for it. So this is just another example of until they're going to be less hostile to reptile keepers, we're going to have some issues.
Right.
It's great that we like the new director and they're willing to have a conversation with us. But I mean, what happened a couple months ago with her testimony, and we haven't even posted on all of it. You did see her kind of bragging to the legislators about the killing of the monitor lizard,
Right.
which they said was a black throat. We think it was a white throat, but regardless, it's not a species that's invasive in Florida. Mm-hmm. And she was using that as an example of great things that FWC is doing. And she talked about them killing 17,500 iguanas since 2012. And she talked a lot about how bad iguanas are. So she was basically lobbying for this bill, whether they intended it that way or not. It's only natural that one of those members of the committee that was listening to her is going to put a ban on iguanas in his bill. So it's still a problem that we have. So it is somewhat related to what FWC's done. I mean, they've done a PR campaign for years now against iguanas, starting when they wanted to prohibit them the first time. So they passed rules through the legislature that ban them. Mm-hmm. We sued over that. We got that overturned by a judge. So basically what the legislature is trying to do again is pass rules on something that was already declared unconstitutional by a judge. He's going right back to that. But, these elected representatives, it's not always a primary concern whether something's constitutional or whether it even is worth doing to address a problem. It's all about signaling to your constituents that you're somehow fighting for them. And he thinks that somehow by banning iguanas, he's helping the people of Florida, unfortunately, which, it's totally ridiculous. But this is what happens when people are just constantly telling you how bad iguanas are. And he's not even from South Florida. He's not even in an area where green iguanas live in the wild. He's from Central Florida, kind of my home territory, the dead center of the state. So there's no threat from iguanas anywhere near him. But, again, I think he's a guy who has a heart for animals, and he's been convinced by the Humane Society and animal rights activists that this dog and cat ban's a good thing because having puppies and kittens at pet stores is bad in their view. But along with it, if they can ban reptiles, well, he thinks that that's a political advantage that's going to help his bill through. So whether he even cares about the iguana part of it or not, if he thinks there's a political advantage to that, that's why he's doing it. But he's definitely heard from some reptile keepers. So we appreciate all of you who have written emails or made phone calls in the last few weeks. And right now, that's what we're asking you to keep doing. We may expand that to other representatives or even the governor's office at some point. But right now, we're just going to keep asking Killebrew to retract that iguana language. The legislative session doesn't actually start until January 9th. So there isn't even anything that he can do about this until the session actually starts. But we kind of want to kill this thing before it goes to any committees, because once it starts going through committees, then it's a lot harder to stop.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to put your alert up here too. Man, look at me being all tech savvy now, man. Look at this, man. I'm going to get my honorary PhD here pretty soon.
Awesome. You deserve it.
Let me take that stuff out of the way for a second. But this is what we're talking about, guys. This is the alert. Again, just like with USARK National, you guys getting on and checking those alerts. USARK Florida has got this as well. And this is, and I'm not signed in, so the Florida updates and actions and so forth. The Florida iguana ban is right here. This is what we're talking about. HB 1033. And, just like with national, they go in, they give you a rundown of pretty much what the bill is about. And you've got the link right here where you can go in and look at the actual bill. And of course, once again, this is the kind of stuff that these guys have to filter through and translate and all that other stuff, figure out what the legal jargon is and how it applies to
I was going to say, if you keep that up for a second, you can see how sneaky some of this stuff is, because really all this, the only thing that this does that affects us is it scratches out the regulation already bans green iguanas, or the statute, and it slashes through green in green iguana, and it slashes through the species name iguana.
Right.
So just by doing that, just a couple slashes, it's changing the meaning of the statute to encompass all iguanas. Man. So it can be interpreted much more widely there. Now, that language is already shouldn't be passed by the legislature, but apparently there's don't care whether they pass unconstitutional things.
Right.
So, we have a good chance of beating this, but it, as usual, it takes all of your help. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is why I could never move to Florida, because I've got berms, I got retics, and getting a green anaconda at some point. The Nile monitor I already got, my tegu. I was like, I would have to give up everything except like 3 species if I moved down here, according to this,
Yeah, and I mean, sadly, what we're seeing with that Louisiana the proposed rules is it's just what we're going to be seeing more and more. We know Georgia's already done something like that. South Carolina has, and now Louisiana. And there's a big push on both invasive species or non-native species and on turtles, on all turtles. So those are the big areas that are under threat. But like what they did in Louisiana, they're regulating all native turtles now. So all of them are going to be either called regulated or prohibited. So they're not just including the big snakes, and tegus and monitors and stuff on their prohibited species list. They're also including native turtles. So that's if you're going to ban stuff, whether it's, because it's native or because it's non-native, that doesn't leave us with a whole lot, because everything is either native or non-native. But sadly, I mean, exactly what you're seeing in Louisiana right now is something that's being pushed by this group called the CCITT. It's an organization that's cooperative between biologists and law enforcement from different state agencies and federal agencies. And what they're trying to do is sync up all the turtle regulations. But they want to ban all native turtles. And this is a big deal for, a lot. Native turtles are a big deal in our whole trade of reptiles. I mean, red-eared sliders, yellow-bellied sliders, mud turtles. There's a lot of turtles, snapping turtles that people breed a lot of that are native. And this is something they're going after in almost all states. So they want to spread these regulations. But some of the same people involved in those turtle rules are also pushing hard on the invasive species stuff. So there's some of the same people that are pushing for the Lacey Act amendments. And you really see it all in this Louisiana bill, because, or these new rules being proposed, because in Louisiana, they're saying now that they will ban anything that's considered an injurious species under the Lacey Act. So they're taking a federal regulation, and they're applying it on a on a state level.
Right.
So one thing that those Lacey Act amendments, Rubio's bill and Luna's bill in the federal House and Senate right now are trying to do is make it so that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service can list species as injurious, like on an emergency basis, almost unilateral decision.
Right.
So U.S. Fish and Wildlife could just basically declare species as injurious.
Right.
And then they won't be able to cross state lines, but then you'll have states like Louisiana, if these rules pass, it'll become banned in the state of Louisiana.
Right.
So you can see how dangerous this is to give these agencies this power.
Yeah.
And that, you don't know what species they're going to decide is the new enemy tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Louisiana is banning these rules that they're having is going to ban brown anoles and Cuban tree frogs.
I know.
I mean,
they're only bad
silly.
for you if you eat too many of them. I mean,
yeah, I mean, just silliness. So, but it could be bearded dragons. I mean, we've heard our FWC commissioners mention bearded dragons, and they kind of like, what are these dragons? Because it just sounds scary to them. They don't really know what it is. So reptiles are scary to people. So that's why we just have to stay on this, and we have to keep fighting. And I'm seeing somebody donated there. Really appreciate it.
Hill, thank you so much.
We can't do this without you guys. So this only happens if the reptile community continues to support USARK and USARK Florida.
Yeah, we're going to do I'm going to really be contributing a lot of time. And again, too, just like I told Jeremy, you guys down in Florida, I'm going to keep growing this platform. And you guys, anytime anything comes up that you ever want to come on and talk about, man, just let me know. We really appreciate it. You've been so supportive in the last year on a number of issues, and it's really what we need. We need people who care about this stuff all over the country. And you guys have seen how the stuff that happens in Florida, just like what we're seeing in Louisiana now and what we've seen in Georgia and, elsewhere, that the stuff tends to spread. And these state biologists and law enforcement, they're talking to each other. This isn't just happening in a vacuum in each state. Yeah.
And the Humane Society is a national organization that's pushing these things state to state.
Mm-hmm.
In the last year, we saw that with USARK National, these animal program bans, which, might have banned educational programs with animals. They were called circus bans because the animal rights activists have been successful in making circuses seem like theaters of animal cruelty, but they would have banned an educational talk for a scout troop with snakes or traveling with reptiles. And, I think that the same exact language appeared in like 5 different states, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it was defeated in all of those states. So we just have to stay on it and keep fighting. But these threats are not going to go away. We have to be vigilant.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things. It's something I want to start focusing on more on here as my reach expands some. I really want to get more people communicating with me about setting up the educational programs, because we're pretty fortunate out here in North Carolina as it stands right now. I mean, we've got the one real restricted species out here, and that's the tegu. And we was talking, Jeremy and I was talking about how most people are really, we're not terribly opposed to permits. We're more concerned about the execution of them and how reasonable the authorities are going to be, and what happens if they change the laws. And now everything that you've got on the table gets taken away from you, just like happened to Chris Coffey,
Right. And we had a conditional species permit, which allowed people to keep those, but they had to abide by certain caging standards, and they couldn't just sell them to the public within the state. But, like what happened to him, he had a conditional species permit, and then they just changed the rules and said you had to have a prohibited species permit, which they wouldn't issue to most people. They only had 14 conditional species permit holders that we're aware of that were actually breeding and selling Burmese pythons and reticulated pythons at that time. So how difficult would it have been for them to just grandfather those people in, continue to allow them? How much heartache could they have saved by just doing that for somebody like Chris Coffey? But they just wouldn't. And then they came in and killed all these animals, and we know what the outcome of that has been. They got worldwide negative media attention over it.
Yeah.
So that's one reason we have to be a watchdog, and we have to kind of we have to be a deterrent to this kind of thing. And when these bad things happen, we have to expose them also to show what we're capable of, and show how we can draw negative attention if they don't do things the right way. And other wildlife agencies see that also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much, Carla. And you're absolutely right. USARK and USARK Florida, they do a whole lot with a whole little.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about Humane Society of the United States earlier. That's an organization that takes in, I believe, around $300 million a year, something like that.
Yeah,
and they make people think that they're saving little puppies and kitties and stuff. Most of that money's going into lobbying. It's not going to animal shelters. They've kind of gotten, because they call themselves Humane Society, a lot of people associate them with their local humane societies, but they don't really support them. So they're a big lobbying organization. They're fighting to mostly separate people from animals. But USARK and USARK Florida, the levels of funding compared to, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands rather than millions of dollars per year. And for as many reptile keepers as we have, that's pretty sad. I mean, if every reptile, we have tens of thousands of reptile keepers out there, and most of them are not donating. Most of them are not participating in all this. It's mostly supported by just a few people. And we're up against these organizations like Humane Society of the United States, PETA, ASPCA, Center for Biological Diversity, Defenders of Wildlife. A lot of these organizations take in hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's who we're having to literally fight, and where it's kind of a David and Goliath situation. So we really appreciate everyone who does support us. And USARK and USARK Florida are separate organizations. We're funded separately. So just if there's any confusion there, you can be a member of both. We encourage you to be a member of both, and you don't have to live in Florida to support USARK Florida. But we're working together, and we're the primary organization representing keepers in Florida. But certainly, if you're in Florida, please support us first. And if you're out of state, support USARK. But we're of course happy for you to join and support. And I know, Tim, you're a USARK Florida member, and we have a lot of people out of state. And you did a lovely video for us showing how people can join. So go to our YouTube page, and you can see Tim showing you how you can join USARK Florida. It's very easy on our website.
Piece of cake, man.
But yeah, we really need all of your support. I hate to beg for money. It's uncomfortable, but unfortunately, that's how this stuff happens. I mean, we can't just...
It's just a matter of asking people to step up and I mean, take some responsibility for their own lives. If you've got animals, you've got pets in your life, you need to step up, take responsibility, and support the people that prevent the government from coming in and killing your animals. It's that simple. And it's not that much to join. If you eat at least once during the year, you can join. There's no excuse. I've been pretty flat broke, and this whole thing cost me quite a bit. And I still managed to skip a meal and Fortunately, I'm losing a little bit of weight too. I had to go put a belt on tonight.
Wow, what? You look good. You look great. I wish I could say the same, but
All right. I mean, it's a struggle, man. Especially for me, I spent most of my life, between the military and all that other stuff that I was doing, man, I was a stud. And then about 40 rolls around and
yeah, I've had an adjustment with this job that I'm doing because I've worked in the field as a biologist a lot, and I've always been out in the field a lot more than when I started doing this USARK Florida stuff. It's kept me indoors a lot more, unfortunately. So I have to make sure that I still get my exercise in and get outside and stuff.
yeah. See, my big problem is I have zero food self-control at all. Like, if there's food within arm's reach, it's gone. I've got no self-control at all. I love to eat. I used to have to eat a lot. I used to burn a lot of calories. I used to have to shovel food down my neck. And now I drive around in the car all day, and yeah.
Exactly. I totally understand. I'm same issue here.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was curious too, and I haven't looked into this. For the green iguanas down there, what actual impact are they having on the environment, save for the fact that they're shitting on rich people's sidewalks?
Well, the sad thing is that up until just a few years ago, a lot of people liked the iguanas. They live mostly in developed areas and urban areas. Right. It's not an animal you see much just out in the Everglades, because where there are a lot of natural predators, they just don't. They're not abundant. There are a few live there, but they're at low density. So you see them mostly around people, along canals and people's backyards and stuff. And I used to catch a lot of iguanas and sell them, actually, especially babies. We would go out when the babies were hatching, and we were able to get, sometimes hundreds of them. People sometimes get thousands of them in just a few days when the babies are hatching. And people were protective of their iguanas. A lot of people really liked the iguanas in their backyards. But when FWC wanted to ban them, they really did a PR campaign to demonize iguanas. Mm-hmm. And they really brought out a lot of negative stuff. They told people that they can carry salmonella. Mm-hmm. Now, we know of no examples of somebody getting salmonella from a wild reptile, but I'm seeing the same thing now with Georgia. DNR is putting out information about tegus, saying they can carry salmonella, and they're saying that because they can live in agricultural areas, they even have implied that the tegus could spread salmonella to crops, and that could transmit to people. There's no evidence that's ever happened. There's no evidence that an iguana in Florida, a wild iguana, has spread salmonella to a person. So, that's not really based on science. That's just speculation, and it's just exaggeration and demonizing these animals. They've said that they can damage structures, and we haven't seen much evidence of that. Actually, they've said that they've caused millions of dollars in structural damage. They do dig burrows into canals, and there was one old water control structure that had iguana burrows in it that was becoming dilapidated, but apparently it was like 80 or 100 years old or something. It was really old, and it was quoted in some article that the iguana burrows might have contributed to the dilapidation of this structure, which was old anyway, but there was no actual evidence of that. But that led to them saying that iguanas cause hundreds of millions of dollars in structural damage, and we just don't. There's no evidence of this. They said iguanas could threaten burrowing owls because they found that iguanas and burrowing owls were sharing burrows, and they said that iguanas might even eat the burrowing owls. But what they actually found in the studies was that burrowing owls were using burrows that were dug by iguanas.
Right.
And the only evidence of that predation that they saw was that the burrowing owls were eating baby iguanas.
So I was
So
thinking.
there was no negative interaction for the owls, even documented. Right. Owls use gopher tortoise burrows, they use iguana burrows, they use other animals' burrows. Right. So the only evidence that they gave was actual positive interaction for the owls. And burrowing owls occur through much of Central and South America. And guess what also occurs in a lot of Central and South America? Iguanas. They live together. So right. It's not like just because you have a species in Florida where it's not native living with a burrowing owl that it's going to be any different than in their native range. Right. So these are animals that are equipped to live together. So I think the impacts of iguanas have just been way exaggerated. Yeah, there are a lot of them in some areas. I get they do eat people's non-native plants that they plant in their yards. So, you have natural habitat's been bulldozed. It's been planted with invasive grass and invasive plants. And then you have these non-native lizards eating the non-native plants. And, that's kind of the extent of it. So I think iguanas are really cool, and I always liked seeing them out in the wild. I mean, I can't say they're a good thing. We don't want non-native species to be out there, but they're living in areas that don't have many other native animals. Basically, wildlife has just been like wiped off the map in these places. Yeah. And iguanas do very well there with not many natural predators, and a lot of people still like them. And when FWC encouraged people to kill them, the cities had to take action because people were shooting into. There are some people that just like to go out and kill animals, and people were even shooting into people's yards from boats and stuff to kill iguanas. And most of the cities down there banned shooting iguanas in the city limits because after FWC told people to kill them, there was so much of this happening. I think people actually got shot. You had people shooting from rooftops and stuff. It got like the Wild West out there. It got a lot of news coverage. So I just don't think FWC should be telling regular citizens to kill animals anyway. A lot of people can't identify animals correctly. They've said that with cane toads and Cuban tree frogs. Also that people should kill them. And we've seen people kill native frogs and toads. That can't identify those correctly. So, I don't know why they're encouraging people who are not professionals, not scientists, to kill animals. It just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, I understand hunting for population control and stuff like that, but, and the folks that are sport hunters, yeah, cool, whatever. We've got a process in place to eat, find meat and stuff like that. I've never had much interest in shooting anything that didn't have a gun in its hand too. So
yeah, I mean,
more justified.
I'm certainly not anti-hunting, but we don't want animals to be treated cruelly. Right. And, unfortunately, FWC has told people they have to kill things humanely, but they don't tell them how to do that. And they also haven't provided them with any good example of doing that, because FWC has killed animals cruelly in some widely publicized incidents. So, where are people getting the information on how to actually kill animals in a humane way? Most people just don't know how to find that information.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle, man. And I mean, especially, and I fight against this in today's culture a lot because, I mean, politics, legal stuff, it's all about clicks. It's all about what can draw the most attention. And we all know what draws the most attention. It's barely ever the truth. The most fantastic thing that you can come up with is the stuff that's going to get everybody's attention, whether it's true or not.
Yeah, I mean, you have YouTubers you readily admit that, everybody has to use a clickbaity title or something because it's the only way you could get anybody to watch your video.
Right.
Even if you don't want to be that way, if nobody's watching, it doesn't do you much good.
I know, right? That's kind of the double-edged sword of what I'm doing. I want to grow the channel and increase the reach and all that stuff, but at the same time, what I do doesn't draw a whole lot of attention as a general rule. So it's
that's
an uphill struggle.
it's certainly a struggle that we have a little bit, because a lot of what we deal with, these regulations, is very dry stuff. You showed that big white page of state statutes earlier, and that people just tune out. It's boring. But that has a real impact. I mean, if somewhere hidden, boring, long white page bans your pet and causes somebody from the government to be able to come and kill and take your pet, or you to have to get rid of it, it's going to affect your life. So, unfortunately, that's just what we have to deal with.
Yeah, I'm posting a link to this page here too, because we talk about things being a dry read and being boring and all that stuff. If you guys can just go click the link, you can avoid the long dry read of the actual laws and get the letters out. They put it all right there, right for you. So
yeah, and if you're writing any politician or official, if we ever post one of these alerts, we ask you to be polite. It does us no good to be rude and confrontational. We want to come off as professional. And I was so proud back in May when we had the FWC commission meeting after the massacre, the Holy Thursday massacre, with the pythons being killed. I was so proud of our people for generally being very professional. Even with this emotional, awful event that just happened, they really represented our community well. And we have to continue to do that. So if you're making any phone calls or showing up to meetings or writing letters, do your best to represent reptile keepers professionally.
Mm-hmm. I think the best thing we can do when we're engaging with other people is, instead of going off angry and immediately accusing them of not knowing what they're talking about or anything like that, going and say, okay, as a constituent, can you give me the reasons why you're supporting this ban? What do you think this is actually going to, what do you think the threat actually is? You can have those conversations where you ask them, and a lot of times they're going to come back with something like, well, I heard this, this, and this. And it's like, well, let's take a step back here, because, this PhD ecologist has, this is a peer-reviewed report that states blah, 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 and, if you approach them from that perspective, a lot of times you can, bring people around if they genuinely want to do the right thing, So really important part.
Yeah. And, with somebody like the representative that we're dealing now with this iguana ban, and I think he's 80 years old. He's he's a nice guy, apparently. Like I said, I think he has a heart for animals, so we don't want to start throwing accusations around and demonizing him. Yep. But we believe he's misinformed, and he doesn't really understand what he's doing. So it's our job to educate him.
Yep. Yeah, I think a lot of people are in a really polarized mindset these days, where the whole concept of working with people on the other side kind of goes out the window. Both sides are too busy throwing shit at each other. So that's something that we need to definitely, everybody that's watching needs to push this out.
Yeah,
we're all Americans.
You talk about the polarization, and if you get to like party politics and stuff, it's amazing how most people think that it's the other side, whatever, that's not their party, that's doing everything that's bad for them. Yeah. And I can tell you with these reptile laws, it's neither major party has a monopoly on bad policy on this stuff. It's Republicans and Democrats. Mm-hmm. And Humane Society of the United States, we saw a presentation by their representative at a a tag meeting last year, and she talked about how 51% of their contributions are going to Republicans. So, if you think the animal rights activists are just Democrats or something, and you're a Republican, that's it's not true. It's both sides. It's all sides. All sides are misinformed. And, in Florida, it just so happens that we have Republicans mostly in power. In other states, there are different situations. But a lot of bad things have happened in Florida coming from animal rights activists, which people sometimes associate with the left, but with Republican politicians. So, this stuff can come from both sides. So we have to be vigilant. Never think that your party isn't the one that's responsible for this stuff, because I guarantee you they are.
Yeah, different reasons, different, the money will come from a different place, but the end result is the same in both cases. And I hate to do the old man thing, and back in my day, but I remember growing up, nobody trusted politicians. You trusted your neighbor. You didn't trust the politicians. You could have one on the left, one on the right, red, blue, whatever the case may be, and you trusted your neighbor, and you didn't trust politicians. Now people freaking worship politicians and hate their neighbors who, and it's the funniest thing. And I noticed this when, just going around out here in North Carolina, talking to people, you'll see people on both sides who hate people on the opposite side. But as you talk with them with no political overtones, they're almost identical. Their views on almost everything is almost identical. And if you pull that whole conversation out and put them in a bar together, they're going to sit there and fall off the bar stools together and be best friends. But you put them on.
Yeah, it's such a team. It's such a team sport, Everybody roots for their team.
Yeah, it's insane. I try to push that relationship with reality, and sometimes I'm not really good at keeping my mouth shut, but
well,
do for the most part.
I mean, I can tell you, I got a message. We get all kinds of messages to USARK Florida, and one person said something like, "I feel like Congressman Matt Gaetz is one of the only people fighting for us anymore," and he is actually one of the biggest recipients of Humane Society of the United States money, animal rights money. So, don't think that just because somebody is on the right that they're not involved in animal rights activism. Because and he's, one of the favorites to be our next governor in Florida. So, I mean, this is, and once again, I'm not trying to take partisan sides here, but I'm just trying to tell you that just don't think that, somebody was very convinced that he was the only one that was on our side and fighting for us. And I was like, well, he hasn't shown any signs of being on our side on animal stuff. So, we have to be vigilant for all sides for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even going to touch Matt Gaetz. So,
he's certainly an entertaining guy.
Not even going to say a word about running vehicles in garages or nothing, and Florida better off. But I can edit that part out if I want to. Oh man, but yeah, it's off of politics because I could rant for the next 4 hours on that.
Yeah, but you're right about one thing and it's just don't trust any of them. Don't trust politicians. Yeah. I mean, that should just be something that we all understand. I mean, I'm sure there are politicians that are good people and honest people. I haven't met many of them yet, but whenever I'm talking to politicians, which I do quite frequently, I just kind of take the view of this is transactional for them and whatever's good for getting them to win the next election or get the next donor money is all they care about. And that pretty much works out. So, I hope that some of them are good people and actually have ethics and morals and stuff, but I pretty much just assume they don't.
Right. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the word transactional. That's a really good way to look at any interaction with them, because typically anything that if a politician's talking to you, they want something from you. You know,
Yeah.
it's
And we
typically,
even see, we're a heavily divided, obviously very polarized state in Florida, but you'll see it, in legislative committee hearings that I've sat in on. I mean, the Democrats and Republicans on the committees, they're not mean to each other. They're actually talking, and the Democrats still want those Republicans to support their bill. They have to suck up extra hard because there's more Republicans than Democrats in Florida. So you don't just see them being mean to these people. They're all trying to scratch each other's backs however they can. So they're horse trading and making deals and stuff. So that's just the way it's done.
yeah. And I mean, all that stuff ties back into the purpose for USARK and USARK Florida is to watchdog stuff like that. Yeah, because they will definitely take over a minority like reptile keepers really quick if we don't stay on
Yeah,
top.
I mean, especially if they kind of have found a way to demonize us and shift, people seem to care about the environment in Florida, which is great.
Yeah.
But somehow they've made it seem like invasive species are the biggest threat to the environment in Florida. And we know that that's just not true. I mean, they're cloaking the state with herbicide everywhere. They're bulldozing the woods as fast as they can. And, it's a threat to all animals. And, sadly, because we are a big minority and they don't make a lot of money off us or get a lot of campaign donations, they think that we can be pushed around, and we've kind of had to punch above our weight a lot of times and be a deterrent to that.
Right. Hey, Johnny come lately. What you been doing, Jordan? I just seen he popped in. Yeah, you guys can see the link that I pinned up top. That's to the page that I had up that shows where we're generating the mail to. And I didn't check. Let me go back to here again and see if did we have a sample letter in there or talking points mainly.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have a sample letter in this one. We have what the ban is, but if you're writing an email, you can just kind of take what we've said there. It doesn't have to be long. Just kind of voice your opposition to the bill and say you don't want it to apply to iguanas. And we probably should have some sample letter language. We may add that at some point, but that was kind of posted hastily right after we found out about the regulation, and we probably should update that sometime soon.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, we've got the addresses and everything on there on the link. You can, just like Daniel said, hit those points. Doesn't have to be anything long. I'm opposed to HB 1033 as written. I support USARK Florida's position on HB 1033. However you feel comfortable phrasing it. And like Daniel said, phrase it politely and professionally, and don't, and I've said this on the last show with Jeremy, and I'll say it again here. I mean, anything that you write and you send out, you represent the entire reptile community. So if you come across looking like an ass and an idiot, then you're making everybody look like an ass and an idiot. We need to, sit down, think about things, think about the best way to get your point across politely, professionally. You don't have to be weak, but you don't have to be disrespectful about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All good.
So what kind
of
good
events, pointers?
Yep. What kind of events do you guys got coming up down in Florida? Because I know I've got to get down to Florida at some point soon, or my mother's going to send a hitman after me.
Well, we've I'm getting my brain back into gear for the new year. We've kind of taken it slow for the past few weeks over the holidays and stuff. So nothing immediate coming up for USARK Florida that comes to mind. But we usually have tables at a lot of the local reptile shows, whether those are Repticon or Show Me all over the state.
Right.
But we haven't. I don't think we have any fundraisers scheduled yet. We'll probably announce some. We'll probably have an auction at one of the maybe at Repticon Tampa or something in the spring, and we'll probably do another online auction. So we've had a lot of people support us that way. Mm-hmm. So that's great. So we found that alternating between these online auctions and the in-person auctions of the show kind of is good to get everybody a chance to support. So we had people all over the country that are like, well, I'd love to be there whenever we post on an auction that we're having at a Repticon Tampa show, but I'm not in Florida. And, so we do these online auctions at BSR auctions. That's been great. So we really appreciate all of you. So just follow all our social media and we'll definitely post some things. Yeah. We're a little bit behind. We've just, people have kind of taken it easy for the past few weeks. So we'll definitely be given some more updates very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we're at the same point. I always love the holidays because I never have to leave the house and you can recharge a little bit. And this year is going to be really, really busy for us. I know a lot of potential, really good moves going on. And I am going to, I got Morph Market to post the video that I did with Jeremy. I'll post this link with them as well. I've been talking with the team out there at Morph Market about doing familiarization videos for them to kind of enhance what they can offer folks on there. Like as you're looking at this animal, here's a link to a video where it explains everything that you're going to need, things you need to look out for, stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting some of that stuff off the ground. And and they've already told me that anything USARK related, they'll share on their platform as well. So
yeah. I mean, every Morph Market has been very supportive. Mm-hmm. I know there's always controversy, and I hear a lot of things going on all the time. But all I can say is Morph Market has been very supportive to us, to USARK Florida and USARK National. So we really appreciate that. Yeah. And we
go ahead.
We a lot of the bigger businesses, Timberline, who a lot of you know for feeders, crickets, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They're one of the biggest supporters of USARK and USARK Florida. Zoomed, Reptile Industries. There are some big businesses that have been very supportive, but I would love to see more kind of grassroots individual keeper support and smaller businesses. It definitely takes all of us. Yeah. So don't just leave it to the big businesses. And I also should say here, Brian Barczyk has been very supportive through the years. Yeah. And I know you were talking about Brian earlier, and I mean, it's certainly heartbreaking what's going on right now. Our heart goes out to Brian. He's been really great for us. And I first met Brian, I think, in 1993 when I was a kid at the National Reptile Breeders Expo, which was in Orlando at the time. And I got my first pair of Cow Kings from him.
Nice.
And he gave me a deal. I think I made an offer, and then he didn't have a pair of normals, so he ended up giving me an albino of one of them for the same price, and that was just thrilling to me as a kid. So he was super cool then and friendly, and we've had a chance to coordinate on some things in the past few years, and he's just always been great for us. So thanks for everything you've done for us, Brian, through the years, and our heart goes out to you, buddy.
Yeah, it's That's why I was saying in that video the other day, just, you take the best parts of people, the things that were important to him, pick it up and drive on with it,
Yeah.
That's the best way to
Yeah.
make sure somebody lives forever is to just carry that part of them on. And one of the things that he would really hate to see is an iguana ban in Florida. So let's prevent that from happening. And we'll tackle the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, he was very passionate about this every time I talked to him. Trying to think, they did a video kind of supporting us like a year ago, I want to say, but I mean, talking with Brian on the phone about what was going on in Florida at that time, he comes off as a really nice guy, when you meet him in person, and usually when you're talking to him about when you get him on these regulations and stuff, he would get fired up. You would see a whole different side of Brian. So I appreciated that. I really liked that on the phone. He just got fired up and, man, saucy language and everything.
Yeah, I can relate to that. It takes a while. I'm nowhere near the showman that Brian is. I probably will never be, because it's taken me a great deal of effort over the last 10, 15 years or so to really tone down the way I manage my relationships with civilians specifically. Once I became one, I was like, I got to learn how to talk to these things now. But I'll tell you, man, it's been, getting into the reptile community has been the best thing I ever did. Really just an awesome group of people out here. And it makes it easier to be pleasant to people. I find
certainly not a boring group of people either.
This is true. Let me see real quick if there's any last minute questions and stuff like that. I'm going to apologize, guys. Of course, I haven't kept up with the chat because Daniel and I have been talking. Go ahead, and if you guys have got any last minute questions, go ahead and throw them out there, and we'll see if we can hit them real quick. Of course, if you guys want to throw super chats out, we'll definitely get those as well. I've got to figure out where in the hell I'm going to put another enclosure, because I've got a 12-foot retic with an attitude problem I got to take in now. Which will be some good which will be some really good videos if it's
always the issue, the 12-foot retic with an attitude problem.
Yep. Let's see. Okay, that's not neuter and release would be, I don't think that's something that would be feasible at all, really. You may have a different.
Yeah, I haven't heard that discussed. I think it might have been discussed with pythons, but I'm not sure that's actually happened.
I think we'd have a hard time getting anybody to make the investment in that program when it's so much cheaper to kill them.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that it would. I mean, the biggest thing we can do to impact the iguana population is just allow people to collect them and ship them out of state, which is banned in Florida. And that's part of the reason we've had a population explosion in the past few years, is because they banned collecting them. And we had hundreds of thousands of iguanas going out from a single business. We think we had over 1 million iguanas a year going out of Florida, and now all those are just staying in the wild and breeding. So the iguanas that hatched in that year that the prohibited species rules passed, 2021, are now have grown up and are breeding in the wild. So banning them definitely has not helped the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it would help the economy down there. You get local Floridians collecting these things up and sending them off to people as pets. And I mean, I don't see that. It seems like a win-win to me. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just seems like the point of it more was just to ban reptiles wherever they could, rather than something that actually had an impact on the wild populations.
Right. Greg was asking about getting USARK info at the table when you do shows. I know my experience with that has been typically, if we provide anything at the shows, we typically print it out ourselves. And it's twofold. The organizations don't have the money to invest in huge mass printings that they can just send out all over the country a lot of times. So
Well,
we're anything.
It's something we're working on. I can't speak for USARK National. Maybe Phil Goss has something. I'm sure if you're willing to print it yourself, I'm sure something could be sent at least for you to print. So I would talk to them about that. We're definitely going to be working on something for USARK Florida soon. So stay tuned and send us a message to any of our social media, and we'll try to get you something like that as soon as we can.
It'd be a good idea is just put something up on the website that you can download, send off to the print shop for like trifolds and stuff like that, so people can just print it off and or save it. I mean, that way you guys are they're getting the right information, but they're not expecting USARK to cover all the cost of it and stuff like that. So that might be a good idea.
That's something we should look at. We actually did just we're going to be getting some grant money for that and other things, but we just found out we haven't. You're getting the first public announcement of this. Woo-hoo. But we actually were just awarded a grant from the World Pet Association, WPA, who apparently are impressed with some of the work that we've been doing. So we're excited about that. So we're going to be rolling some of that out. But part of what we asked for in our grant request was money for educational materials. Right. So that is something we're going to be working on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd like to see that stuff too, because I know this year I've already got a couple places that want us back. And I know as soon as it warms up out there, man, our public education stuff is just going to keep rolling along and getting bigger. So I need to, and a lot of our folks, want to have stuff out there as well. So that's something I need to get with both USARK and USARK Florida offline and get some stuff that I can have at our events.
Definitely.
Because, and to everybody that's watching or will be watching, like I said, the public education events are where it's at. If you've got a legislator or a commissioner or a fish and wildlife person who's never had any experience with reptiles, and they just happen to go to a park and they see a big snake and they see their kid light up petting a 16, 18-foot snake or 200-pound tortoise or something like that, when those bills come up to ban those animals, there's going to be one more person here that can say, you know what, wait a second. I've seen people hug these things. I've seen them like licking their eyeball and stuff and they didn't die. So
yeah, it's one of the most important things we do as reptile keepers.
Yeah,
for sure. And luckily that's something we were able to work for in Florida, is they banned public contact with those prohibited species. Really? And we did get that back. So people who have prohibited species permits can actually do programs where the public can have contact with those animals again. And that was only through our efforts that's happening.
Yeah, I'd like to get down there and get involved in some stuff in Florida as my opportunities to travel expand. Kind of stay busy and landlocked up here. See, Judd was asking if there was any updates with the McAdams thing, as far as lawsuits or anything like that.
So there is a separate lawsuit going on with Chris Coffey and Bill McAdam over their incident, and that's why you haven't heard a lot from us about it. We can't talk about that a lot because it's actively happening. Right. So it's something we're coordinating with them on. But just stay tuned for information on the future on that. Obviously, what they went through was terrible, and they have a a pretty good case, we think. So that's something that's in progress right now.
Yeah,
And
they're definitely not going to be going out making public statements about stuff that's still in court. So
yeah. And then USARK Florida is in a separate lawsuit with FWC that's also in progress. So I wish these things didn't play out for years, but unfortunately that's just the way it happens. And we don't want this stuff to come to lawsuits. That's why it's great we actually have leadership at FWC now that we can talk to. So hopefully we can warn them in advance, hey, let's work this out before we have to sue you. Because it costs tons of money. Our lawsuit has gone over $1 million, I think, in legal bills. So, that's unfortunately when we're hitting you up for money all the time. It's not what we want to have to do, but these lawsuits aren't cheap. Some people make it seem easy. Oh, you should sue. They say that about every threat that we get. And, it'd be great if we could, if we had the funding that, for instance, Humane Society of the United States has, we could do more of that, but we can't afford to sue on every single thing. So we have to pick our battles. And, it's hopefully, we can get stuff figured out before it comes to a lawsuit in the future.
Right. Yeah, lawyers certainly aren't cheap. Not even a little bit.
No, definitely not.
See. Yeah, Jordan had mentioned. Yeah, we do this at the shows that we do. We'll print off QR codes that go to different websites and stuff that people can.
Yeah, we do have something like that, but I don't think we have it publicly available on the website. So yeah, we'll work on that for sure.
Yeah. I think Greg, most of us would are the same way. We can go down and get stuff printed off for folks. We just need to know what it is, and I've got to start looking on the USARK national site too to see what's on there. I've got so much stuff that I want to put together for these shows. So we really need to get the Intrepid thing built up so that I can do this full time. So I got time to do all this stuff, and I ain't got to sit around mapping gas lines when I can be setting up educational events. Here's the video, people. Get subscribed.
You've done great. Yeah, everybody subscribe to Tim's channel. You've done great. You've grown a lot in the past year. And we even doing so, supporting us, and which not everybody is willing to do with their channels, unfortunately. So we really appreciate that. So everybody support Tim, and we thank you so much, Tim, for what you've done for us.
You guys should have every creator in the friggin' country blowing your phone up. I should never be able to get in touch with you for all the people blowing up you and Phil and Jeremy and saying, hey, come on my channel, talk about this stuff so that we can get it fixed.
A few do. Most don't seem to want to get they consider things like this controversial, and they don't seem to want to get involved, and it's not always the most exciting content for their page if they're jumping on crocodiles or whatever they're doing. So
that's really the gist of it. A lot of this stuff doesn't get the clicks and the views and all that other stuff, just like you say. So that's why it doesn't get a whole lot of attention. But it's all.
But even just the little mentions help. Just the little mentions and just references to what we have going on, because in the long run, if we lose a lot of these battles, and if USARK was never formed, we would be in such a different place right now as a reptile community. A lot of what most of you do, probably who are watching this, what you do with reptiles would probably already be illegal, if not for USARK. So it's not just the individual battles we've won, but then the deterrent of now people who would want to institute these bans are hesitant to try it because they know that they're going to be fighting us. And we have a pretty good reputation of winning at this point. So, to continue to exist, unfortunately, we're going to have to keep fighting this, and USARK and USARK Florida are the only kind of organizations out there for you.
Yep. That's the facts, Jack. Thank you, Greg. I just seen that. Red Zeppelin. I love that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That one. Yeah, Greg's an awesome guy. I met him up at Retic Fest last year, and came all the way out from Utah. Now I've got to make my way all the way out to Utah at some point to see him and Wes and the guys out there. And Nathan Katz is out there too. So,
yeah. Utah is I haven't spent any time in Utah. It's a place I would definitely like to get someday.
Yeah, I've been along the southern side all the way out to the west coast. Never made it up north of Oklahoma though. So one of these days. Well, of course, Arkansas, Missouri, up into Michigan and New York and Maine and all that stuff, been there. But as far as the Northwest, I haven't been there yet. Yeah, and I got to do a pit stop out to see Jordan too in Kansas.
Yeah. All great herping destinations too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe we'll do a mini Retic Fest out here in North Carolina if things work out the way they may this summer. We may have some
great
coming this summer. So if we do, I'm going to end up establishing some parking and a little campsite or something wherever we end up, depending on how that goes. And we'll just do another Retic Fest cookout type thing up here in North Carolina for everybody. Sweet. Yep. So we've been on here for an hour and a half. I think. Yeah. Any last thoughts or anything like that outside of just making sure that people are getting on and checking the website and getting the letters out?
Yeah, we really appreciate everybody who's helped out and sent letters on this iguana ban. Definitely check all our social media, and if you could give us a like or subscribe, we're on all the things. Mm-hmm. So I wish we could put out more content. Unfortunately, I'm the only person that is kind of working full time for the organization. So, we have to do social media stuff, but also a lot of stuff behind the scenes working on these regulations and stuff. And our president, Elizabeth Wisniewski, is working really hard, and all of our board members all the time on all this stuff too. But, definitely if you can follow us so you can stay updated on all these issues when something new pops up, because it really takes all of your support. And USARK and USARK Florida should have a lot more followers compared to the numbers of the whole reptile community. So a lot of people just aren't informed. So I really encourage you to stay informed on the rules and regulations and, upcoming legislation and proposals. And we post fun stuff too on our social media. It's not all a drag. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the other things, TikTok. I talked to you about TikTok before, Tim. You're still supposed to get on there and do some dance videos.
No. See, maybe one of these days I'll no, I'm not even going to go there. Sometimes my sense of humor oversteps. I'm just going to cut that off right there. Not appropriate for TV. But yeah, I've got to expand out what I do on the other platforms too. Everybody's telling me, dude, get on TikTok, put some of your snakes out there. You'll get out there.
Yeah, so there is a lot of reptile stuff going on there for sure.
Yeah, I've got to. And just like with you, man, it's a matter of having the time to do it. It'll get there though, slowly but surely. And when we put this stuff out here and we're talking about supporting USARK, it's not support USARK so they can go on vacation. It's support USARK so they can protect you. You're supporting yourself. We've got these groups of people, these small groups of people out there that are taking steps to protect your interests if you keep animals. So it's not a matter of charity. It's a matter of, if you've got animals, do your part. Step up.
It's an investment in your future for sure.
Yeah. So it should be a demand. It's not like, hey, I'm sorry to have to ask. It's like, hey, people, we're doing the work for you. Step up, back us up. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe we could step up our game and get a little more like the old time unions, where they carried a big stick and
be the next Hoffa, man.
I hope not, but
I know. Yeah, Bob's still eating. Bob's still doing great. My Sri Lankan finally ate for the first time in 5 months, which was really cool. Yeah, I don't want to keep you on here all night, man. I'm gonna go off of here and grab something to munch on and all that stuff. And I think we've got all the last minute questions, and I really appreciate you coming hanging out with us, man, on short notice like that.
Yeah, anytime. Well, I appreciate all you do, Tim, and thanks everybody who tuned in and asked questions, and we really appreciate your support. Follow USARK Florida.
Absolutely. You guys have an outstanding night, and I'm going to go start contemplating what the next video is I'm going to put out. You guys take care.
Bye-bye.